Hi and welcome back to Piano Legends with this month's bonus tip video on the subject of what are the differences between keyboard playing and piano playing. I get asked this stuff a lot when people ask me whether my piano tuition is okay if you only have a keyboard, to which I always say absolutely. The notes are in the same place, they're the same notes, the same things apply. But I do say there are a number of differences between how someone usually properly plays piano versus keyboard, because the jobs of your two hands tend to have some fundamental differences. So in this bonus tip video, I'm going to explain just what a couple of those are. The main difference between piano and keyboard playing is that primarily, if you are playing an electric keyboard that is able to generate its own accompaniment, it has drum beats in, some kind of magic happens when you play some notes, the kind of thing you might imagine a school having, where if you press a chord down, this ding 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 starts. That's very technical, you get the idea. If that kind of thing is a facility of the keyboard that you have, then that tends to mean that you play a chord in the left hand and a melody in the right hand. So the jobs of the two hands would be to hold a chord down whilst in the left hand, whilst my right hand plays a melody. But as you can hear, if you do that on a solo piano, there's no magic happening, there's no drum beat, there's no accompaniment being generated for you by the keyboard. So it's a little bit limited to do just that on a solo piano. In addition, if you play chords in the lower part of the piano, the sound can get very quickly very muddy. So around this kind of area is okay, but listen, as it goes down into the lower part of the keyboard, that's really not a great sound. Whereas in the middle part of the piano and higher, chords are okay. So if you're playing a solo piano or a keyboard that's designed to sound like a solo piano without any extra accompaniments being generated, then it's likely that you're not going to want to put the chord too far down the lower end of the piano like you would do on a keyboard. So that's a fundamental difference. In keyboard playing, you tend to have chords in the lower part of the keyboard because it's going to generate an accompaniment for you, and your right hand is just going to be responsible for playing the melody. Whereas in piano playing, you want the chords to be in a much richer area sounding part of the piano in this middle area rather than too low down where it gets pretty muddy. So in piano playing, what in fact tends to happen is that your right hand ends up playing chords as well as the melody, doing two jobs when you are able to do both of those jobs and you have the experience to be able to do those two jobs, both chord and melody. And the left hand provides a bass line, and it can also do some tricks that will help suggest some rhythm as well. So that's the fundamental difference between piano playing and keyboard playing. The jobs of your hands tend to be slightly different because of where you're going to put the different aspects of the music sound. In the left hand, on a keyboard, you may play the chord, whereas in a piano, you're just going to play a bass line, because if you put the chords in the lower part of the piano, they sound not that great. One of the other main differences between some keyboards and piano is to do with their technical spec. Very commonly I get asked by people who are beginners or just wanting to try piano or keyboard playing out whether they can buy any keyboard. And the main tech spec aspect that I always ask people to look out for is whether the keys are touch sensitive. And the expression touch sensitive can sometimes be replaced by things like weighted keys or semi-weighted keys or hammer action, this kind of thing. And they all kind of mean a similar ballpark thing as far as we're concerned for the purpose of this video. If keys are touch sensitive, that means the harder you hit them, the louder they get, just like it would on a real piano. So, yeah, I can change the volume of that depending on how hard I hit the key. On the very cheapest, the most inexpensive keyboards, we have very commonly keys that are not touch sensitive. And that means they kind of compensate for a beginner's lack of ability so far, because it's harder to be able to control that volume with your finger strength. So what they do with the cheapest keyboards is they don't have that technical specification, so that the keyboard will almost compensate for the keyboard player's lack of skill, and it'll play the same volume no matter whether you catch the key properly or not. Whereas on a piano, they are of course touch sensitive. How do we know that? Because that's why they're called pianos, because a piano's full name is a pianoforte, and in Italian, piano means soft and forte means loud, because the instrument was the first keyboard instrument where the harder you hit the keys, the louder the keys got. So it was called, in effect, a soft loud. Whereas the cheapest keyboards don't have that facility, and that's terrible for your technique if you're hoping to one day be able to play piano or keyboard to any kind of standard. So please don't have a keyboard that is not touch sensitive. If you want to check with me, by all means send me a message on any particular model, I'll give you an opinion. But really try to avoid keyboards that don't have touch sensitive keys. So that's two of the most common, important differences between piano and keyboard playing. I hope that helps you. I'll be back with another bonus tip video next month.